know, when I show up to work here, I feel like I'm just hanging out with my best friends. I work with an extremely motivated group of people, so we get to do all sorts of training. People want to help teach and pass on the knowledge that was passed down to them. So it's just great, you know, I get to show up, learn from people that I know care about me and that I care about, and better myself and help the community and do some cool stuff while we're at it.
Yeah, being a firefighter is, you know, coming to the station is a home away from home. When I walk in, I feel like I'm seeing my family, my brothers and sisters. It's a place of camaraderie and just a place that I enjoy being outside of home.
That we're seeing more and more calls. We're seeing an increase in criminal activity. We're seeing an increase in violence. We're seeing an increase in overdoses and drug use. We're seeing an increase in mental health issues in patients.
And we see lots of trauma calls. Oftentimes, you know, it can involve children. We see lots of active drug users. We see people with mental health problems who are suicidal and feel like they can't move forward anymore.
I think some of the things that are significant stressors to our responders are the overutilization of 911, but in particular, not being heard. You know, when responders have problems and it goes nowhere and not being heard, it can be a significant stressor. So
it wasn't the big call, it was 1,000 little calls that was hurting them.
Financial stress, the relational stress, the new babies at home that are keeping them from sleeping. All those things we recognize are impacts, along with many of the responses that they make, whether they're going to the same facility or the same adult family home where they feel like they're ill-equipped for what they're facing, you know, dozens of times a day.
Yeah, I think all the things that we see can add up and take its toll on you, not only as a firefighter, but just as a person. I think you can experience, you know, fatigue, compassion fatigue, and you can develop bad habits because of that.
It's not only what you see, it's what you hear, it's what you smell, and all those little things can really eat at you, and you never really forget.
When you talk about the prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder within firefighters, I think it's everybody.
It's the prevalence of, and seems to be the numbers of rise with PTSI. And I love that you're saying PTSI because it's not a disorder to me, it is a true injury.
We're now starting to use the term PTSI instead of PTSD to describe the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. So what we're calling it now is post-traumatic stress injury.
And these are members, if they are in PTSI, they're in crisis.
To one brave lieutenant who recognized in himself a personal need that he wasn't his old self. He recognized a change in his mental and behavioral health and reached out to the organization to say that the resources that we had typically provided or made available weren't meeting the need. And so that started us on a journey to go and look for something more focused and directed at firefighter mental health. So I'm now in, this is I think 34 years in fire and EMS service, and I can absolutely say that the worst day of my career, unfortunately, was Christmas Day of 2017 when I got a call at just after 7:30 in the morning, which is our shift change time, from a battalion chief saying that one of our members had not come into work. And the crew that was missing that member went to their house, which happened to be in the response area, and found that that member had taken her own life. And so that event was certainly a sentinel event for the entire team, and one that we continue to navigate even. Hard to believe now, 6 years later, that the impacts of that to the organization are huge.
So line of duty deaths are very difficult for any fire department to deal with. But when that line of duty death or that firefighter death is by suicide, it's exponential in the type of trauma that it creates because there's so much second guessing on what I should have, could have, should have seen, how could I have done something to prevent it, why didn't I see the signs, or I saw the signs but didn't do anything. So there's more guilt involved with these types of deaths.
Suicide in the fire service can be different from those in the police departments and others because not all of them are reported. And so suicide not only impacts that individual's family, it impacts many others. it impacts us because we see ourselves in others. And if we understand that that could happen to them, I think we think about ourselves. You know, could that happen to me also?
And I think that's the hardest part now, looking back on that, is those questions about how could we have served her better? How could we have better supported her to have hopefully had a different outcome, to where she were still serving alongside us today and helping us in championing this cause for firefighter health and wellness.
We all say, "How you doing?" and we have that automatic response of, "I'm fine." But if you watch and you know a person well, you'll see some underlying, and then you'll ask them, "Hey, how are you really doing?" And that's when the stuff comes out.
Well, here are some signs and symptoms that we really get worried about. When we see that increase of isolation or emotional and social withdrawal, increase in self-medication, whether that's alcohol or drugs, they start to give away things that are important to them or precious to them. They start talking about death and what that must be like. They have a sense of hopelessness. They have a sense that their contribution to the brotherhood of the fire service is not worth anything anymore, that they have nothing left to give. Those are things that we really look for.
And you know, we all knew that there were many facets to firefighter Murphy's life. You know, she was open in some of her struggles, both personal and professional. And so we knew there were levels of struggle. We just didn't fully appreciate the toll that they were taking on her and in the background, and the fact that the right resources were not there in those critical moments when those hardest decisions are made. And so that's the part for the organization that I think has solidified our resolve to make sure that our firefighters and all the others that we have influence on know that those resources exist, to know that they don't have to suffer alone.
The way we take care of each other is by asking questions. We don't ignore the signs that we see in each other.
Once we identify a firefighter that's struggling, the first step is going to be making connection with them.
Yeah, we want firefighters to know that they're not alone in their struggle and whatever they're going through.
And then when it came to mental health, we wanted to make sure that we first had a relationship with these individuals. So we would go to tailboard every morning and try and get to know what our responders' baseline is, so that when an incident does occur, we can see if they are off baseline or if they're okay.
We've gotten so busy here that the firehouse camaraderie has been more work-like. Instead of play and listening and talking, we used to do practical jokes because we weren't that busy. We had a lot of meals together. We sat down, we talked about real life. Now they're very busy and they often talk about work. So we encourage that they connect outside of work together. They understand if they have kids and family and what kind of hobbies they do. You build a deeper connection outside of work, then that connection flows back to work.
Yeah, we say trust is all we have in one sense. We have to maintain trust because they won't utilize us unless they trust us. And so, but part of that takes relationship. It takes consistency. It takes showing up.
And allowing that firefighter then to open up. Sometimes they're going to be typical firefighters. I'm fine, right? Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So it's really about relationship. Maybe I don't have the relationship with that firefighter to make those inroads, but somebody else does.
We'll get told things, but nobody will know who told us. So
Our responders will trust us enough to know that we're not going to make it weird.
Having even me as the safety officer check in and just says, we're thinking about you. We miss you and we hope you're doing well. Let us know how we can support you.
In the wake of that suicide, we began again to relook at what are the needs of our members, and we continued with the embedded clinician model, but we really started to also focus on elements of peer support and expanding the look at what really brings stress on firefighters, what causes, what are the holistic things we can look at in their overall health and wellness. And so over time, what we found was that we modified the program, or it evolved into what we now call support services. So there's still that element of a clinician, someone who's available to talk to on site, but it's much more holistic now. It's targeting those things of all the stressors that exist in firefighters' lives outside of work, the things that they can't leave at home when they come into work.
That I think we decided a long time back was that there was a need for more of a holistic approach to helping our our crew members to helping the members of Lacey Fire. And so we began support services thinking that we were going to, be responding, helping them with crisis response, helping them with several aspects. And then slowly but surely we began to discover a number of things that actually were crucial to the health and job satisfaction of our responders. Sometimes the department doesn't have the resources or the ability to hire very specialized people in these areas. So by us being able to tackle a lot of different things, I think that's a benefit to our department and is helpful for sure. But we basically have two components to support services. And the internal components include counseling referrals. It also includes training. So we do training in our academy. We also do resilience training with our crews. We do triage counseling where we counsel a member as they're getting into a counseling, waiting to get into a counseling appointment.
Our external programs include mitigating improper use of 911. So we work with our long-term care facilities as well as in-home and do social work for individuals in their own residence. We have a long list of resources that we provide for people who may need some more support and don't know what resources are available to them.
So when we solve something or we tackle like a long-term care facility or a home, we try to always follow up so that they know exactly what happened, so they feel like something's actually being done and solved. And so,
I mean, I think it's huge to get every aspect that we mentioned into a program because it's about the whole person, the whole department. We can't just focus on one little thing. We have to take care of all of the issues at hand.
The peer support does things that critical incident stress management can't do, which is that everyday check-in, boots on the ground along with you, being there for you, being present, doing the follow-up after that critical incident stress debrief is over, and making sure that that firefighter is now getting the resources that they need and that we've identified through that process. So these two programs are designed to work together, and they should never take the place of each other.
To me, peer support is foundational. These are members who are trusted, and firefighters need trust to be able to talk to someone. We support them with treating them like a technical rescue team, which we've never done before. So our peer support members have a budget line, but with peer support, we're not just teaching them to help others in the moment of crisis. We're going to teach them not just to be a lifeguard and save them from drowning, but to actually teach them to be a swim instructor. Have them model healthy well-being that others can see that, can learn from, and then they can teach them to swim, and maybe they don't have to rescue them.
Firefighters access these programs a lot, and they're extremely successful. In fact, peer support has a tremendous success rate because it's an ongoing thing that's working every day. And when it's done right, when it's given the resources that it needs to succeed, such as the training opportunities for peer support team members, the confidentiality clauses within policy, firefighters can trust that the help that they need is going to come through those resources.
We work with the people, the 911 callers that are high utilizers or that have more complex problem situations than what the firefighter EMT crew can deal with. I think the FD Cares program is very beneficial for the fire department and amazing for the community. Having a nurse and social worker go into people's homes and meeting them in situations that they can't deny is huge.
We've found too that by solving those problems, like that's been one of the most significant boosts to the morale of our members. Like when we just recently solved one house, one problem in one house, they nearly jumped up when we walked into the room and cheered because that was such a relief to them.
When we interact with the fire crews, they are happy to see us and we are helping them out. They want to get back in service. They are there for the big stuff, which they should be. We come in and we have a lot more time and we allow them to go back into service.
So when someone reaches out for a counselor, one of the biggest challenges we have is that counselors are full, and sometimes it can be 3 to 6 months out. And so one of the things that Jordan and I provide is sort of a triage counseling? Like when a responder wants to talk to somebody, it's usually right now.
Chaplains work closely with firefighters, helping with all types of different things. A lot of chaplains are ministers, so we do funerals and weddings and baby baptisms. I like to say I hatch them, match them, and dispatch them is my job description, because we're a part of the life of the fire department, taking care of this family, ministering to the needs of the family.
That when they come and talk to us, that conversation is protected. We are not licensed. We could be, but we're not licensed for that reason.
For those who have more time in the fire service, talking about mental health and talking about therapy may be more difficult. We started with Vietnam veterans and we watched how they handled some of the trauma that we saw. And they were taught to either push it down or maybe even substance use. Alcoholism was very common in the fire service. So those who have more time in, we have to almost look and learn from our new hires on how to embrace the health, to have a healthy retirement, to truly love our job and appreciate helping others. The upside of this youth movement with hiring millennials and Generation Z is that they're very open to mental health training, they're open to therapy. They've removed the stigma that we've carried for so long.
A lot of firefighters are resistant to help simply because of personality. It's who we are. We're help givers. But once they go, I think I need help, then that opens up that door for the expanded resources that we can provide.
And so firefighters work well with process. We have to make this a process. So it starts with peer support. They go to a resiliency coordinator who get them treatment for PTSI, and then into talk therapy and back to good.
The IFF Behavioral Health Center, the tremendous program designed to assist firefighters in mental health, addiction, PTSI, PTSD type issues. They're really looking at how these two issues are actually coexistent with one another. A lot of times a firefighter will use alcohol to mask the symptoms of post-traumatic stress injuries. So now they're dealing with that post-traumatic stress issue and an alcohol issue. So we're looking at strategies to deal with both.
Know that it is treatable, that we can talk about it, that you can reach out to others, and we can remove that stigma together.
But we also have resources that are very fire specific, such as Code 4 Northwest. Code 4 Northwest is a crisis hotline for us in emergency services that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that phone is answered by somebody who actually is a firefighter, a police officer, a dispatcher, or they have been and are now retired. And all of the volunteers that answer those phones have gone through their own type of issues. So they get it, and they can provide an empathy that maybe somebody who's not familiar with the fire service can provide.
I would like to see the state possibly work with our labor to promote resiliency from the moment someone is hired. This should become just an automatic and not department specific. Right now it's up to the department, up to a passionate health and safety officer to really move things along. But to get a coordinated state effort, I would like to see that.
There's a lot of services and resources out there, especially for mental health. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. But the key in every department is to figure out how do you deliver that stuff in a way that your responders will receive it.
I'm also sensitive to smaller organizations who may not be able to bring full-time resources to bear, but having somewhere, that's why the partnerships regionally and across the state are so important, so that agencies, the smallest and the largest, can share that load, share that burden, so that when one is struggling, they know where to go, because inevitably that one that was able to provide resources this time will have the need in the future. So I think that's why our statewide efforts and nationwide efforts are so important, so that no agency, small or large, doesn't have the resources that are needed.
So the advice I would give to any fire department that is looking to get involved in raising the awareness of firefighter mental health, post-traumatic stress injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicide, addiction, is to get involved. Put up posters, bring in training, develop peer support, talk about it. When things happen in other departments, raise the awareness and say, this is a reality for us.
I would say that that's the important message, is that it is absolutely not a career-ending injury or event for a firefighter to reach out and get help. Actually, if I go back to that brave lieutenant that I mentioned in our agency, quite the contrary. I think the failure to get help would have been the career-ending decision for that member. And I'm thankful to report now, and it makes me emotional to think about that he's now about to retire 9 years after he was willing to take that brave step to ask for help and to recognize that he couldn't do it on his own.